The battlefield was silent, except for the faint hum of dying machines and the distant echoes of explosions. Smoke curled in gray spirals into the sky, carrying the stench of burning metal and scorched earth. The warrior lay on her knees, her armor battered and torn, her limbs trembling from the effort of holding herself upright. Around her, the battlefield was littered with fallen soldiers, both friends and enemies. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding just moments ago, now struggled to focus through the haze of pain. She had fought with everything she had. Every strike, every movement, every breath had been honed through years of relentless training. She had been told she was the finest warrior of her race, the pride of her people, the shield against extinction. And yet, here she was, surrounded by enemies, her strength failing, her body broken, her spirit fraying. A sharp pain shot through her side, making her gasp. She fell to the ground, her hands digging into the dirt as if it could hold her upright. Her vision blurred, the faces of fallen comrades flashing before her eyes. They had believed in her. They had counted on her. And now she was powerless to protect them. The alien enemies loomed closer, their forms tall and merciless, their eyes glowing with cold intent. She knew she would not survive this final onslaught. For the first time in her life, fear seeped into her mind, not the fear of losing a battle, but the fear of ceasing to exist entirely. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the end. And then, nothing, or perhaps something entirely unexpected. She opened her eyes, and the world had changed. Gone was the scorched battlefield, replaced by a room of soft light and unfamiliar sounds. She was lying on a bed, her body strangely whole, her injuries gone, or held together by invisible hands. Panic flared in her chest as she struggled to move, to understand, to escape. The room was small, clean, and strangely calming. The walls glimmered with panels that hummed quietly, and outside a window, a strange expanse of stars stretched endlessly.
"Where am I?"
she whispered, her voice hoarse. She tried to sit up, but something warm and firm pressed against her shoulder. She froze, her instincts screaming caution. A human stepped into view, tall, with soft features and gentle eyes. They regarded her not with hostility, but with careful concern. "You're safe," the human said quietly. "You're on our ship. You're not in danger anymore." The warrior blinked, disbelieving. Safe? On a human ship? The word felt like a lie. Yet her body said otherwise. Every ache, every wound, every shred of exhaustion that had weighed her down just moments ago had vanished. She stared at the human, her mind racing. These creatures, smaller, weaker, fragile compared to her people, had somehow saved her life. I do not understand," she said. Her voice was firm, but her words trembled. "Why would you save me?" The human hesitated, as if choosing the right words carefully. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because we do not leave others to die if we can help it. That is what we believe in. Belief." The word stirred something deep within her. Her race had believed in honor, in strength, in victory at any cost. And yet, they had failed. The humans, fragile as they seemed, had chosen compassion over conquest. They had chosen life. She looked down at her own hands, her fingers curled into tight fists. The thought that humans could be stronger than her in ways she had never considered ignited something unfamiliar, a mix of curiosity and unease. How could a species so physically weak possess a strength she could not measure in combat? Days passed, and the warrior remained on the ship. She was watched carefully, given food and water, and allowed to rest. Every movement of hers was studied, every reaction noted. The humans did not force her, did not bind her, and did not treat her as a prisoner. Their trust confused her, but she found herself compelled to honor it, if only to maintain the dignity she had always valued. She began to explore the ship, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. Panels and screens displayed information in a language she did not know, yet she could sense the order, the logic, and the purpose behind each function. Machines hummed in rhythm, lights pulsed softly, and the walls seemed alive with quiet energy. She had fought on countless battlefields, yet this environment felt alien in every sense. There were no screams, no blood, no victory cries, only the steady pulse of life. The human who had first spoken to her approached again, holding a device she did not recognize. "This is to help you recover faster," they said. The warrior tensed instinctively, expecting a trap, a weapon, or some form of manipulation. But the device emitted a soft glow, and when she felt its touch, warmth spread through her body. Pain she had thought permanent faded, and a clarity she had never experienced settled in her mind. "Your species, it is unlike any I have encountered," she admitted, her voice low. "You heal, not through brute strength or dominance, but through care?" The human nodded. "We believe in protecting each other. Strength comes in many forms. Physical power is just one of them." Her mind struggled to accept it. She had spent a lifetime measuring strength by the edge of a blade, the force of a strike, the fear inspired in an opponent. Yet here, she felt something new, a sense of calm, a sense of safety, a sense that perhaps she had been wrong about what truly mattered. The warrior began to train again, instinctively at first, testing her own limits. She expected to dominate, to outperform the humans easily, yet she found herself learning from them instead. Their movements were precise, their strategies unpredictable, and their teamwork flawless. She could strike with lethal power, but they moved as one, adapting, anticipating, surviving. For the first time, she experienced frustration not from failure, but from admiration. Curiosity slowly replaced her suspicion. She watched the humans interact, noticing small acts of courage and intelligence. One repaired a damaged engine, while meteors rained down on the ship's hull. Another calmed a panicked crew member with a simple touch and quiet words. These were not acts of strength, yet they carried power of a different kind. A power that saved lives, united people, and changed outcomes. The warrior's nights were restless. Memories of her battlefield, of her fallen comrades, haunted her dreams. But intertwined with the pain were fragments of her new reality. The soft glow of the human ship, the steady hum of life support systems, the quiet voice of the human who had saved her. Slowly, she began to wonder if perhaps she had been granted a second chance for reasons beyond mere survival. One evening, she stood at the ship's observation window, gazing at the endless stars. The universe stretched infinitely before her, vast and mysterious, yet she felt something she had never felt among the chaos of war. Possibility. Could she trust these humans? Could she learn from them? Could she become something more than just a warrior defined by battle and death? The answer came unexpectedly. A transmission from the ship's sensors reported an incoming vessel, one she recognized immediately. It was an enemy scout ship, likely sent to finish the war that had claimed so much of her world. Her heart tightened. The familiar surge of adrenaline, the clarity of battle instincts returned. But it was different now. She no longer fought only for honor or survival. There was a choice to be made. Flee as she might have in her world, or face this threat alongside those who had given her a new life. The warrior's hands tightened into fists, her mind sharp and focused. She had closed her eyes to die, but she had woken to live. And living meant making decisions, forming bonds, and stepping into a world that defied every expectation she had ever held. She turned from the window, her gaze meeting the human who had watched over her tirelessly. There was no fear in their eyes, only trust. And in that trust she found a spark of something she had never known: hope. The battle would come, she knew. But for the first time she did not feel alone. She was a warrior still, but she was learning the ways of humans, and slowly she understood that strength was not only in power or skill, but in choice, in connection, and in courage that came from more than muscle. The stars outside stretched endlessly, and for the first time, she imagined herself moving among them not as a lone fighter, but as part of something greater, a crew, a family, a force that could change the galaxy not through fear, but through resilience, intelligence, and heart. And in that quiet realization, she made a silent vow. She would survive. She would learn. And one day, she would fight not only with the strength of her body, but with the strength she had seen in humans. A strength that could perhaps save not only herself, but others too. The warrior who had once accepted death as her only certainty now felt a strange new power within her. The power to live, to adapt, and to become something entirely new. Days passed aboard the human ship, and the warrior's world continued to shift in ways she had never imagined. At first, she had stayed quiet, observing. Now, curiosity and necessity began to pull her out of the shadows. She learned how the humans moved through their ship, how they managed their tasks, and how each of them relied on one another in ways that defied her previous understanding of strength. They were not soldiers, not in her sense. They did not train to dominate. They trained to survive, to adapt, to protect each other, and those who could not protect themselves. Yet, despite their smaller, weaker bodies, they carried an air of confidence, a certainty that she had never known in her own world. It was maddening and inspiring at the same time. The warrior started to join them during drills, expecting to show them how to fight. She thought she would easily surpass them, her body conditioned by years of relentless combat. But what she found was different. The humans moved unpredictably, relying on improvisation and instinct. They worked together, communicating without words, anticipating each other's actions. In her own world, warriors fought alone or in strict formation. Here, the strength of the many outweighed the skill of the few. One day, she was paired with a human engineer named Eli. He was not a fighter, but he insisted she train with him anyway. "Strength isn't only about arms and legs," he said with a quiet smile, handing her a small, awkward-looking device. "It's about thinking, adapting, and knowing when to move and when not to." The warrior frowned. This was not what she expected from training. But as the day wore on, she realized that Eli was right. She tried to strike, and he dodged in ways she did not anticipate. She struck again, and he countered with minimal effort, using her force against her. Every time she attacked with raw power, he redirected it, forcing her to rethink her strategy. Hours passed. Sweat ran down her face. Her muscles ached. And yet, something strange happened. Instead of frustration, she felt exhilaration. She had never learned like this before. She had never had to outthink her opponent instead of overpowering them. With each lesson, she felt herself changing. Her mind, so accustomed to direct action, began to see the subtle details, the patterns, the potential in the unexpected. In the evenings, she wandered the ship alone, gazing out at the stars. She remembered her home, her planet, her people. The battlefield where she had fought, the faces of fallen comrades, the endless cycle of death and honor. And yet she could not deny the pull of this new world. Humans had saved her, healed her, and now they were teaching her in ways her own people never could. She began to notice small things that unsettled and fascinated her. Humans laughed at times when she would have expected grim faces. They comforted each other without hesitation. They argued, yes, but they also listened. They were fragile, yes, but they carried a resilience she had never seen. Every day they survived challenges she could barely imagine. Long journeys through dangerous space, the threat of unknown alien predators, and the constant uncertainty of life beyond their home planet. Yet they endured, together, without the need for ruthless dominance. Her nights were filled with dreams she could not understand. Memories of battle clashed with images of stars and quiet corridors. She dreamt of her own people, of the shame she might feel if they saw her here, learning from humans. She dreamt of faces she had begun to care about, the humans who had risked their lives to protect her. One figure, Eli, appeared repeatedly, always speaking words of calm reasoning, guiding her without demanding obedience. The warrior began to realize that she was not just surviving here, she was growing. Then, the first real test came. The ship's sensors picked up a small alien vessel approaching at high speed. It was not hostile at first, but the humans prepared for confrontation. The warrior's instincts flared, her body tensed, ready to fight, strike, and kill as she would on a battlefield. But she noticed the humans around her. They did not panic. They did not cower. They moved as a single entity, each performing their task with precision and purpose. She followed them, feeling the familiar rush of combat instinct, and yet she restrained herself. Instead of relying solely on power, she began to observe, to adapt, to anticipate. She watched the patterns of the approaching ship, noted the strategies of the humans, and realized that raw strength alone would not win this encounter. When the alien vessel fired, it was met not with brute retaliation, but with calculated maneuvers. The humans redirected the ship, creating a path for defense and counterattack. The warrior marveled at their coordination, the way they thought several steps ahead. She had fought thousands of battles relying on her skill, her reflexes, her speed. Here she saw a different kind of power, the ability to work as one, to think as one, to act as one. The alien vessel attempted to ram the ship, but the humans anticipated the move. With a precise combination of maneuvers and energy redirection, they deflected the attack and disabled the alien's engines. The warrior, for the first time, felt awe without envy. She had not won the battle. They had. And in winning, they had preserved life rather than destroyed it. After the confrontation, she found herself standing with Eli, watching the damaged alien vessel drift away. He placed a hand on her shoulder, not demanding respect, but offering partnership. "You see," he said softly, "strength isn't only in how hard you can hit. It's in how you think, how you act, and how you protect." The warrior nodded slowly. For the first time, she began to understand the essence of what these humans embodied. Her own pride, her obsession with victory and honor, had blinded her to another kind of strength, one that could survive where brute force failed, one that could save lives rather than take them. Days turned into weeks, and the warrior's understanding deepened. She trained not just physically, but mentally. She learned the patterns of human thought, their problem-solving methods, and their unwavering commitment to one another. She began to see herself not as a lone fighter, but as part of a larger entity, a team, a crew, a family. Yet she could not ignore the pull of her past. She remembered the battlefield, her fallen comrades, and the honor that had defined her life. There were moments when rage flared, when old instincts demanded dominance and retaliation. But each time, she paused, recalled the human's methods, and chose a different path. She began to see that her strength was not diminished by restraint. It was refined by it. One evening, as the ship drifted through a quiet sector of space, the warrior stood on the observation deck, gazing at the distant stars. She felt a new sense of purpose stirring within her. The universe was vast, filled with threats and challenges she could not yet imagine, and yet she no longer felt the despair that had consumed her when she had closed her eyes on that battlefield. She had survived, and more importantly, she had learned. Eli approached quietly, standing beside her without speaking. She did not turn to him, but she felt his presence as she looked out at the stars. "You've changed," he said simply. She allowed herself a small smile. "I am learning," she admitted. "Your ways, they are strange, but they are powerful." He nodded. "That's because power isn't always what it seems. Sometimes it's in small actions, quiet decisions, and the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard." The warrior's gaze shifted to the endless void beyond the ship. For the first time, she felt hope, a sense of possibility. She could survive, she could grow, and she could fight, not just to win, but to protect. She thought of her own people, of the battles she had fought, and of the enemies that still existed in the galaxy. Perhaps, she realized, there was a new path for her, one where she could use her skills not just for destruction, but for something greater. The quiet of space enveloped her, and she felt the steady hum of the ship beneath her feet. She no longer felt alone. She was part of a crew, part of a mission, and slowly, part of a species she had once underestimated. Humanity was teaching her more than survival. It was teaching her how to live, how to care, and how to fight with honor in ways she had never imagined. And somewhere deep inside, a spark of something else began to grow. Trust, connection, and perhaps the beginnings of something she had never allowed herself to feel before. A longing. For the first time since waking, the warrior did not feel fear of the unknown. Instead, she felt the quiet determination. The universe was vast and dangerous, yes, but she would face it alongside humans. She would learn from them, fight with them, and perhaps even protect them as they had protected her. She closed her eyes that night, not in surrender, but in reflection. She thought of her own strength, of the lessons she had learned, and of the journey still ahead. The galaxy was full of challenges, but she no longer faced them as a lone warrior. She faced them as something new, a fighter, a learner, and perhaps one day a protector of a species she had once thought weak, but now knew to be extraordinary. The calm of space was deceptive. The warrior had learned this in her brief time aboard the human ship. Every star, every shadow, every flicker of light could hide a threat. She had trained, observed, and grown, yet nothing prepared her for the moment when danger approached, not as an abstract warning, but as an undeniable reality. The alarm sounded without warning, a shrill tone that cut through the quiet hum of the ship. Red lights pulsed along the walls, reflecting in the warrior's eyes. She moved instantly, her body reacting faster than her mind could fully process. Humans scrambled around her, not in panic, but with precise, practiced movements. Every crew member knew their role, every action purposeful. The sensors had detected a fleet, hostile ships, larger and more numerous than anything the humans had previously faced. The warrior felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, a reminder of her battlefield instincts. She tightened her fists, felt the tension in her muscles, the readiness in her reflexes. This was what she knew. This was where she thrived. And yet, this time, she was not alone. The humans moved with surprising coordination. Some managed the ship's navigation, others prepared weapons systems, and a few ran diagnostics to predict the enemy's next moves. Eli stood nearby, calm and focused, issuing orders in a steady voice. The warrior realized that she had never seen leadership like this, decisive yet collaborative, confident yet inclusive. It was a new kind of strength, one she could respect. The enemy fleet appeared on the view screen, a wall of dark ships bristling with weapons. The warrior's instincts urged her to charge, to strike, to fight, as she always had. But she hesitated, watching the humans around her. They were not afraid. They were ready. And in their readiness, she saw a lesson she could not ignore. Strength was more than power. It was strategy, unity, and timing. The first attack came swiftly. Energy beams lashed across the void, striking the ship's shields. The warrior felt the vibration through the floor, a pulse that reverberated in her bones. She was ready to leap into the fray, to tear through the enemy with her own hands. But Eli grabbed her arm. "Wait," he said. "Not yet. Watch and learn. We fight together, not alone." She clenched her jaw but obeyed. The humans executed maneuvers she could barely comprehend. They did not respond with sheer force. They used the enemy's momentum, guiding them into traps and blind spots. The warrior's eyes widened. She had fought hundreds of battles relying on speed and strength. Yet she realized that in this engagement, raw power alone would not suffice. The humans combined their knowledge and intuition with precision timing. One ship fainted, drawing a group of attackers off course. Another activated a defensive pulse, redirecting energy to vulnerable points in the enemy's formation. And the warrior, she moved with them. integrating her combat instincts with their coordinated strategies. Her strikes disabled incoming drones, her reflexes saved crew members in critical moments, and her presence added an edge to the human tactics. As the battle continued, a small squadron of enemy ships broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the command deck. The warrior's heart pounded. She could have rushed forward and cut them down easily, yet she remembered Eli's words. Fighting alone would be reckless. She needed to adapt, to combine her skill with theirs. She took a deep breath, scanning the situation. One ship veered closer than the others, its weapons aimed directly at a human engineer repairing critical systems. Without hesitation, she launched herself forward, intercepting the blast with her armored body. The impact threw her back, but the engineer was safe. She rose quickly, her mind racing, adjusting to the chaos. Around her, humans moved with synchronicity she could barely process. They did not panic, did not falter. Instead, they anticipated, reacted, and protected one another. It was a stark contrast to the brutal individuality of her own people. Her comrades had fought and died alone, honor-bound and isolated. These humans, fragile though they seemed, were stronger in ways she had never imagined. The warrior struck again, this time coordinating with a human pilot. Together they disabled an enemy ship, forcing it into the path of another, creating a chain reaction that shattered the squadron. Her mind, once trained only to fight, now learned to think in harmony with others. She realized that victory was not just about killing. It was about survival, protection, and strategy. In the midst of the battle, a human crew member called out for help. The warrior saw a young crew member trapped in a failing section of the ship. She could have fought the enemy first, as she would have done on her planet, but she chose differently. She leapt into the chaos, her strength and speed saving the crew member just before the structure collapsed. The human looked at her with awe, gratitude, and trust. And in that moment, the warrior felt a new kind of pride, not from dominance, but from protection. The battle raged on, each side pushing the limits of their abilities. The warrior, once confident that she was the strongest being in any fight, now saw the human strength manifest in unity, intellect, and resilience. She began to admire them, to trust them, to consider their methods as a path to something greater than mere survival. As the enemy fleet began to retreat, the warrior stood on the deck, her armor scorched, her body tired, but her mind alight with revelation. Humans had won, not because they were stronger individually, but because they were stronger together. They had adapted, improvised, and protected one another. They had faced fear and danger without losing their humanity, and she, a warrior trained to rely on only herself, had witnessed it firsthand. The ship's alarms quieted, replaced by the soft hum of energy systems returning to normal. The crew moved to assess damage and tend to the wounded. The warrior found Eli standing nearby, his calm expression unchanged. He nodded at her, a silent acknowledgement of her efforts.
"You did well," he said simply. "You fought with skill, yes, but you also learned to fight with us."
That is what matters. The warrior exhaled, a mixture of relief and pride filling her chest. She had been tested not only in combat, but in understanding, in restraint, in trust. She had acted not out of instinct alone, but out of awareness and cooperation. She had learned the most important lesson of all. Strength was not solitary. It was shared, cultivated, and protected. That night, as the crew repaired the ship and celebrated their survival, the warrior stood quietly, reflecting. She thought of her own people, of the endless cycle of war, death, and honor that had defined her life. And she realized something profound. Had she faced this battle alone, relying only on brute skill, the outcome would have been uncertain. She might have survived, or she might have fallen. But together, they had prevailed. Together, life had endured. A new understanding settled within her. She was no longer just a warrior, bound by pride and honor. She was part of a team, a community, a force that could face the vast and dangerous universe with courage, wisdom, and resilience. And she had chosen to be here, not out of duty alone, but out of respect for the humans who had shown her a new way to fight and live. In the quiet moments after the battle, she wandered the corridors of the ship, observing the humans in their routines. They laughed, repaired, and strategized, often pausing to care for one another. She saw the bonds between them, unspoken, but strong, and she understood that this was a power no weapon could match. It was a strength born of connection, empathy, and shared purpose. She paused by the observation window, gazing at the stars. The galaxy stretched infinitely before her, full of dangers she had yet to face, and yet she no longer felt the solitary burden of fear she had once carried. She had allies, humans who had saved her life, taught her, and trusted her in return. She had a chance not just to survive, but to grow, to change, and to become more than the warrior she had been. Her thoughts turned to the battle still ahead, the threats lurking in the shadows of space, and the enemies she would inevitably face. She knew she would fight, as she had always fought, but now with a new perspective. She would fight to protect, to survive, and to uphold the values she had begun to understand from humans: courage, compassion, and unity. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope that she could reconcile her past with her present, her strength with the new understanding she had gained. Hope that she could find a purpose beyond the battlefield, beyond honor and survival. Hope that she could belong somewhere among beings who were small in stature, but immense in spirit. Eli approached once more, standing beside her without speaking. The warrior glanced at him and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of what she had learned. "We win because we fight together," she murmured, more to herself than to him. He smiled faintly. "Exactly. And now you fight with us, not as a stranger, but as one of us." She closed her eyes briefly, letting the words sink in. The warrior who had once closed her eyes to die had opened them to a new reality, a new life, and a new understanding of strength. She had fought battles before, but none had taught her what she had learned today. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were also extraordinary. And now, she was beginning to see herself as extraordinary too. Not because of her skill alone, but because she had learned to combine it with something greater. Trust, cooperation, and courage born from the heart the galaxy awaited, vast and unpredictable. And for the first time, the warrior felt ready, not alone, not isolated, but part of a force that could face anything. Together, they would survive, adapt, and thrive. Together, they were strong, and together, they were unstoppable. The warrior had never felt a night as quiet as this one. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship, a tapestry of light and darkness, cold and distant. And yet, inside her, something had shifted. She no longer felt the restless tension that had haunted her since the battlefield. She had survived, learned, and now, for the first time, she felt something she had never allowed herself to feel before: belonging. The human crew moved quietly around her, attending to repairs, checking systems, and preparing for the next leg of their journey. She watched them from the observation deck, noticing the small details she had once overlooked. The careful way they spoke to each other, the way they offered help without expectation, the subtle gestures that bound them together. These humans, who had seemed fragile when she first awoke, were now stronger than she had ever imagined. Not stronger in muscle or weaponry, but stronger in heart, mind, and spirit. She remembered the battle, the first time she had truly fought alongside them, the fear, the chaos, the near loss. And yet, in that chaos, she had discovered something more powerful than victory: unity. She had learned to trust, to adapt, to fight not for herself, but for others. And in doing so, she had discovered a new dimension of strength, one that her people had never understood. Eli approached her quietly, holding a cup of warm liquid. He offered it without words, and she accepted. The warmth seeped through her hands and spread to her chest, comforting her in a way that no armor or weapon ever could. She sipped it slowly, her mind wandering. "You've changed," Eli said softly, breaking the silence. "You're not just a warrior anymore. You're part of us." The warrior set the cup down and nodded, looking out at the stars. "I never thought I could feel this connection with humans, with a crew, with life itself. I used to believe that strength was only in fighting and surviving. Now I see that it is also in caring, in trusting, in standing together." Eli smiled faintly. "And that is why you survived. Not just because of your skill, but because you were willing to change, to learn, to fight with us instead of alone." Her thoughts drifted to her home planet, the memories of battle and loss still sharp in her mind. She thought of her people, their pride, their obsession with honor and strength. She had once believed that her life would be defined by combat, by victory, and by survival alone. But now, she understood something deeper. Her survival had not come from killing or domination. It had come from connection, trust, and courage shared with others. A sudden alert interrupted her reflection. The ship's sensors detected movement nearby. Another hostile fleet, larger and more dangerous than the last. The warrior's body tensed, instincts rising. She had faced this before, yet this time felt different. She was not alone. She had allies, humans who had taught her a new way to fight, to survive, and to protect. The humans prepared quickly, moving as one coordinated unit. The warrior joined them without hesitation, her presence now seamless with their strategies. She no longer saw herself as a lone fighter. She was part of a greater force, a crew that relied on each other, protected each other, and fought as one. As the enemy ships approached, she observed them carefully. She noted their formation, their speed, their patterns. She adjusted her tactics, not relying on brute force alone, but on precision, strategy, and collaboration with the humans around her. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. She had learned patience, timing, and the value of collective effort. The battle erupted with sudden intensity. Energy beams streaked across the void. Lights flashed, and the ship shuddered with the impact of attacks. The warrior moved swiftly, her armor glinting in the artificial light of the ship. She disabled drones, protected crew members, and coordinated with pilots and engineers, integrating her combat skill with human strategy. In the chaos, she spotted an enemy ship heading directly for the ship's main reactor. Without hesitation, she leapt into action, cutting through obstacles, dodging debris, and intercepting the threat. Her training, instincts, and newfound understanding of teamwork combined perfectly. She guided a human pilot through a risky maneuver, redirecting the enemy ship away from the reactor and into a trap that disabled it completely. For the first time, she felt a sense of pride not in her own skill alone, but in the collaboration, the unity, and the courage shared among the humans. They had faced an overwhelming force and prevailed, not through raw strength, but through intelligence, trust, and coordinated effort. She realized fully that humans were extraordinary in a way her people had never understood or valued. The battle raged on, but the warrior's confidence grew. She moved seamlessly with the humans, anticipating their needs, protecting their weaknesses, and striking with precision when necessary. She no longer fought alone. She fought as part of a team, and in doing so, she had discovered a strength far greater than she had ever known. When the final enemy ships were destroyed or forced to retreat, the warrior stood on the deck, breathing heavily, sweat and dust clinging to her armor. She looked at the crew around her, the humans who had saved her life, taught her, and fought beside her. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and respect. They were not just her allies, they were her family. Eli approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did well," he said. "Not just in battle, but in learning to fight with us." "That is true strength," the warrior nodded, her mind filled with thoughts she had never entertained before. She had been a killer, a survivor, a lone fighter. But now, she had learned that true strength was not in domination or fear. It was in courage, compassion, and connection. It was in fighting for something greater than oneself. As the ship resumed its course through the stars, the warrior took a moment to reflect. She thought of her home, her people, and the battles she had fought. She realized that while she had been trained to kill and survive, she had never truly lived. Now she had a chance to do both. She could fight, yes, but she could also protect, care, and grow. She could be a warrior in a new sense, one who combined skill with wisdom, instinct with compassion, and power with purpose. She walked through the ship, observing the crew at their tasks. They laughed, they repaired, they planned, and they cared for one another. She saw the bonds between them, invisible but strong, and she understood that this was a power no weapon could match. It was a strength born not of physical force, but of heart, mind, and unity. That night she stood once more at the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before her, full of threats, challenges, and wonders she had yet to encounter. And yet, she no longer felt fear. She was part of something greater, a crew that would face whatever came together. She felt a sense of purpose, a deep and abiding understanding of what it meant to fight, to survive, and to live. For the first time since waking in the human ship, she allowed herself a small smile. She had closed her eyes to die, and she had woken to a new life. A life where she was not alone, where strength was measured not just in skill or power, but in courage, compassion, and connection. Eli appeared beside her again, silent but steady. She glanced at him and nodded. "I understand now," she said softly. "Strength is not just survival. It is protection, unity, and trust. It is life itself." He smiled. "And you have it now." "You are one of us." The warrior closed her eyes briefly, feeling the hum of the ship beneath her feet, the warmth of human presence around her, and the endless stars stretching into infinity. She had found a place where she could belong, grow, and fight in a new way. She was still a warrior, yes, but she was also something more. A protector, a friend, a member of a family that spanned the galaxy. As the ship sailed through the quiet vastness of space, the warrior made a silent vow. She would continue to learn, to fight, and to protect. She would honor the humans who had saved her, taught her, and trusted her. She would face every challenge with courage, wisdom, and heart. And she would never forget that true strength came not from dominance, but from connection, compassion, and the courage to fight for others. The stars outside seemed to shimmer brighter, as if reflecting the promise within her. The warrior, who had once closed her eyes to die, now opened them fully to life, to possibility, and to the future. She had found not just survival, but meaning. Not just skill, but purpose. And she knew that whatever the galaxy held, she would face it, not alone, but together with humans who had taught her the greatest lesson of all. That strength is not in how you fight, but in why and with whom you choose to fight. And with that thought, she turned away from the stars and walked among the humans, ready for whatever awaited them next, no longer just a warrior, but a force of hope, courage, and unity in a universe that had once seemed so cold and indifferent.